Good morning. Hi, everybody. This is Treacy O'Connor from Straight to the Point, live on HCN Live TV. It's very early in the morning here in Dublin, in Ireland, and so we don't have any live viewers at the moment, which is totally understandable because a lot of this goes out in the States, but will be rebroadcast later on today. Happy Solstice to everybody. I am delighted to have with me today Julie Comiskey, who is with us from up north in Belfast, in Banbridge, in the north of Ireland. And I'm delighted to have Julie with me today, seeing as she is the fabulous self-published author of a trilogy called the Solstice Trilogy. Good morning, Cheryl. Oh, you're still up here in the States. That's wonderful. Well done. So, Julie, yeah, the Solstice Trilogy. You have written two, or you're about to launch the second of these books. The first is called The Goddess Awakens. It's called The Solstice, and it's so appropriate that we are actually talking on the solstice. Let me put that title up there for you guys. There we go, Solstice, The Goddess Awakens. And this morning, and today on the solstice, Julie is actually launching in the south of Ireland the second of her books, which is Equinox, The Goddess Rises. Thank you so much for being with us, Julie. How are you this morning?
Good, Tracy. Thank you so much for having me. So I'm talking to you all the way from gorgeous County Down in the north of Ireland, Banbridge, County Down. And I'm heading off later today, as you know, to launch the second in the trilogy, which is Equinox, The Goddess Rises. So collectively, it's known as the Goddess Trilogy. The first book in the series was Solstice, The Goddess Awakens, and the second book now is Equinox, The Goddess Rises. I will be starting research now for the third book, which it's really hard to believe, this summer now. Well, it's almost summer here, so yeah. So I'm really excited about that. And things have been going really, really well. So it'll be a lovely opportunity for me to sort of break into that southern market as well, and sort of reach people, and obviously through the interview today to reach our friends in America, where I was last year doing a wee mini tour with the first book in the East Coast and West Coast of America. So I was dropping copies off just in different places for people to find. No one has got back to me, so I'm really intrigued to see if they've gone to good homes, and it'd be really lovely to see where those copies are now. You know, we dropped them off in stations in Santa Monica.
Well, yeah, if anybody is interested in finding out more, let's just do this from the beginning of the interview. Go on to Facebook, The Goddess Trilogy by J.S. Comiskey, and Julie will answer any questions you have. You can click a link to amazon.co.uk where the books are. You can see the reviews. I just want to acknowledge Cheryl. Thank you so much, Cheryl. She says, love Ireland, just beautiful there. And she's also looking to get a copy of your book, Julie. So thanks very much, Cheryl. You're so welcome. I'd love to know what part of the States you're in, Cheryl, to be up so late in the evening. And happy solstice to you too. So Julie, just to come back to how this all came about. Julie, you studied journalism and politics in university in Belfast, and you launched, or did you start writing the books in 2010?
Yeah, so I graduated from Queen's University in Belfast in 2000 with a degree in English and politics. From the age of about 16, I decided that I wanted to be a political journalist. I think because of my early childhood, the idea of actually being a proper, not that journalists aren't proper writers, but a writer, I think just because I had difficulties with my dyslexia, which wasn't diagnosed until much later in my life, I really cut that side of me off, and I did not give myself permission. I thought authors were other people that weren't working class girls like me. You know, when I looked about even at my own favourite authors, none of them really looked like me or sounded like me, you know. So I suppose journalism was something I was hugely interested in. I've always been interested in politics, naturally being from the north of Ireland. You can't really escape it one way or another. And that's what I had put my efforts into. So I graduated from Queen's, and then I went on to do my postgraduate studies at the University of Ulster in journalism. So I had come out, and I was in and out of journalism probably for about 10 years on and off. It sort of kept pulling me in and spitting me out, and I was so determined that this was what I wanted. I didn't stop at the time to realise maybe this just isn't for me. So I worked with the BBC and UTV, and I worked in local print as well, and such a fabulous experience and a great grinding, but there just was something that wasn't right. So around 2010, I found myself unemployed, out of work. And literally on the winter solstice of 2010, well, 2009 actually, I got the idea for Solstice, the Goddess Awakens. It just popped into my head one night, out of the ether from somewhere. And within about half an hour, I had roughly the plot and where I was going. And I had decided that night that this was going to be a trilogy. Now, I had no idea where it was going to take me. But I just started to write, the chapter, started to research. And in my research, it was really strange. The goddess Bridget seemed to come to the fore, and I still maintain to this day, you know, that she found me. I didn't find her. And I was discovering all this stuff. I suppose when you come from the north of this island, you're quite disenfranchised in some respect from your culture, you know, from your own mythology, from your own stories, the stories of the land. The very language in a lot of ways politicized, when it's not. It's cultural, it's not political. And I'm not saying that there's not a slight marrying of those things, but so I was rediscovering all this. I was rediscovering my own story as an Irish woman, and it has been such a beautiful journey. And as a result of that, you know, I was educating myself about our own stories, about our own language, about our own, you know, we are a nation of storytellers. And I think, you know, I was really re-engaging with all that and reconnecting with all that. And that's really what this, apart from a lot of other things that this trilogy has given me. So really Solstice was my main protagonist, who is Lola Paige. She is a young journalist, surprise, surprise. And her life is irrevocably turned upside down after the death of her mentor, and it transpires as she sort of plunders along. She's thrown into this world, you know, that she never knew existed, really. And she's on this journey not only to reclaim her own story as a woman, but also as the goddess Bridget reincarnated, and about the return of the two of the Danan, and this light to not only Ireland, but the world in general. And so what the trilogy gave me an opportunity to do was to write a book of our time, even though it's steeped in, thanks, sure, even though it's steeped in Irish mythology and that past. I have really tried to marry that and brought it into the context of where we're at now in this current paradigm. It was really important for me to tackle issues such as, you know, the fourth estate, journalism, I suppose the global agenda for some people, the current paradigm, in the sense that, you know, we look at the state of the world and where we're at now, the patriarchy, the military industrial complex. And it has been a vehicle, this trilogy really has been a vehicle for me to explore those themes, all through the lens, albeit, of my main protagonist, Lola Paige, who is just an ordinary working class young woman and has discovered, I suppose she's had greatness thrust upon her, and she's really risen to the challenge. So in Solstice, it's really all about her finding her way, finding her place in the world. Obviously, all those coming of age issues like falling in love, first time we have sex. Unfortunately for Lola, it's not that straightforward. She ends up falling in love with someone who is really, really not only dangerous for her, but the entire human race, you know, where we're at now. So we have a few different characters in Solstice, and we have Lola, who is a protagonist. We have Agrenia, Moon, and her mother Celeste, who are what we would call here in Ireland Bondre. So they're sort of women of magic and of knowledge and of healing. And they belong to an ancient order, and it's called the Ancient Order of the Golden Dawn. And then on the other hand, we have that sort of the goddess energy, and this is a consciousness that we're trying to bring into the world. And then on the other hand, we have the Hellfire Club. And then we have Alex Steen and his father Carl Steen, who are part of this global elite, represent that sort of military industrial complex side of things in the first book. And it's really just about Lola finding her feet just through into this world of myth and magic where the lines become completely blurred. And this is something she really struggles with. And not only that, but the death of Arthur Delphian, who was the head of this ancient order of the Golden Dawn, this ancient Druidic order, whose job it was to protect the secrets of the House of Danu, which are the two of the Danan, of which the goddess Bridget was one of the Danan. Her father was the Dagda. So we have all this sort of woven into the fabric of this contemporary story, which is this beautiful myth that we have, and this beautiful mythology. And I particularly focused in on the Danan cycle because they're really, really intriguing. They were the third race of people to come to Ireland, and even the story of their coming is hugely intriguing. So the story goes that they came through the high air, and when they landed, they burnt their ships, or their ships were burning. So it's really interesting. We're not too sure where they come from, whether they came from the west, whether they came from another planet, who knows. But it's hugely interesting. So I have managed, hopefully, successfully to weave that into a story for today. I'm absolutely winging it, Treacy. I hope you're back with me.
You did a fantastic job, and thanks so much, Cheryl. I don't know, just something came over the computer there, so huge apologies for that. Listen, Julie, I wanted to ask you at the beginning, you mentioned you had dyslexia, and Cheryl picked up on it too. How did you overcome your dyslexia to write these books? I mean, that's pretty awesome.
The irony being, you don't overcome dyslexia. It's something you have. It's something you're with you. And it's really strange because it's something, it was almost like these self-imposed chains that I had. I had put myself in this prison because you were comparing yourself to other people around you in an educational setting. And I wasn't like them, but in my head, everything was reinforcing the word stupid, stupid, stupid. You don't know your tables. You can't spell, da, 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 da. So I think I cut myself off from that. Mm-hmm. But once I realized I actually had got a job in a local paper here, and my editor was becoming quite frustrated with the typos I was making. And he called me up and he said, "Do you think you're dyslexic?" And I said, it's not the first time I'd heard that, but because I'd done so much to overcome this stigma that I had in my own head about being stupid, and I hate that word. Yeah. To go on and get my GCSEs, my A levels, my degree, my postgrad. I think I didn't even want to, because I didn't understand what dyslexia was. I was very ignorant about what it was and what it meant to be dyslexic. So I said, I think that could be absolutely right. Let's go and have a look at that. And I knew someone that I could go and talk to, and every single thing I was able just to, that's me. And once I got that, as an adult, it is quite difficult to get a diagnosis as such. So what they would say is I have strong dyslexic tendencies. So whenever I went, it was almost like a weight off my shoulder. I lost my job as a result of that. Yeah. Absolutely devastated at the time, but it was the fire that ignited Solstice. Because had I not lost my job, I would not have gone on to work for a local TV station here. Right. I would not have met people that ignited something in me. And it also gave me permission. Look, you're not stupid. You just learn differently. Your brain works differently. Well, let's use that to your advantage. You have a great imagination. You're good at connecting dots. You're good at, doing things like that. So as a result of that, I'm very right-brained. As a result of that, it was almost like my shackles were completely off, and I give myself permission to write. So it's so strange, my dyslexia, that was a huge turning point for me, because it was like, okay, well, you can do this. Why can't you be a writer? And don't get me wrong, I've written 2 books now, and the second one hopefully is much better than the first one. The craft is there a bit more, hopefully, and I'm learning that as I go along. And that's reflected quite a lot in Lola's journey, as she's stumbling along, trying to find her feet. I suppose as a writer, I'm doing exactly the same thing,
Well, you're certainly finding your feet, and I know when I came across your book, when you reached out, I was doing some workshops at the time with the Tua De Danann, and you reached out to me and we met up. And being a self-published author, you know, it takes not just the work and dedication to actually write the book, but to actually distribute it and get it out there. I mean, there's so much of that goes on in the background that nobody even knows about. But your book had me absolutely, the first one had me absolutely hooked. You have such a talent and a gift for portraying this story, and there's no doubt that there's something came through you. I would say, you know, Bridget, as you say, the goddess Bridget was firing you on for sure.
I need something, Treacy, but yeah, it was, and that was another huge thing. So these are all huge milestones for me, because that fear, it's the same with anything, like yourself doing the fantastic work that you do. It's no matter how self-assured you are, no matter how, and I wasn't self-assured, let's be completely honest. I had gone down the traditional route trying to find someone to pick up this story. I just felt in my heart that I would not have been given this trilogy if it was not meant to get out there to the wider world, because this book is of our time. It's about this current war on consciousness that we're going through, that we see through the military-industrial complex, through the patriarchy. And I didn't know all these things. I'm not going to lie that I sat one day, let's tackle these issues. These were things that I was passionate about. You know, these were social issues around women, around us as you know, us finding our own story and reconnecting with that side of ourselves, challenging what the world tells us we are. And I know this has been done in a million times by a million better authors than me. But then all that conspiracy side of things and the global politics and that underbelly, that fascinates me. So I think all this is just like a mangled mesh of the things that I'm passionate about. But putting it out there, I went down the traditional route for quite some time, and I got nowhere, rejection after rejection. And when your self-belief is so fragile, it's like a little ribbon blowing in the wind. You know, it's very fragile thing. But you learn to build that up brick by brick by brick. And the best thing is, I think the thing about me is, which is one thing I would say about myself, thank goodness I have this, is my passion always exceeds my fear. So even though I'm scared, I'll say, you know what? Let's just go. And I've stood out. I did that and I stood out. And I have to say, I haven't looked back. And it started with something as simple as putting the book initially up on Kindle. There's still a huge stigma around self-publishing. And I think I feel that because even when you're in the presence of published authors, you know, traditionally published authors, you sort of feel, you know, that I'm not worthy, sort of thing, you know, and there's times in your head where you think, well, if I was good, or if these books were good, you know, someone would have picked it up by now. I would have a publisher. I would have an agent. But that's not how it works. I think I would prefer to have the mandate from the people. Being the sort of person I am, that means a huge amount, and that's exactly what I have gotten, and that's what has allowed the Goddess Trilogy to grow organically. It's people like yourself, it's all the fantastic people who have picked my book off a shelf, or bought it off me personally, or came to a book launch and have recommended it to someone else. And as a result, I've built up a beautiful community over the last few years, and it's really, really heartening. And when I read reviews, and even people taking time reviews, I even hate asking people for reviews, and it's so crass and it's so brash. But unfortunately, as an independent author, that is liquid gold to me. That's all I have. Your reputation is all you have. And it's probably like any writer, don't get me wrong. But I feel, you know, if you had this big machine behind you telling people how great your books were rather than you having to tell them, it's really uncomfortable. So on a part, that power, I still struggle slightly with that. You know, I still struggle with, look at these books, these are brilliant. And even though I believe wholeheartedly they are, and I just think if I keep plugging along and keep doing things like this, and you even giving me the opportunity today to do this, I really appreciate that. So it's just another wee step forward, and hopefully, you know, in my head, it's so strange. I visualize, you know, this wide expanse of the universe and all these wee doors, and I'm sending these wee hands out, knocking on the doors, and eventually one of those doors is going to open a wee crack, and maybe this will just help me get out into the mainstream, you know. So
yeah, for sure, something's going to come along. And I think maybe part of the journey, Julie, has been the opportunity for you to overcome your fears, and
100%.
For you to demonstrate that your passion exceeds your fear, as you said. and not only with the dyslexia, but also the rejection from the big publishing companies, and that could send anybody down a rabbit hole of complete rejection and, you know, unworthiness. But I mean, you're an absolute inspiration, and just keep going. And I would seriously encourage anybody out there who's even considering, maybe I'll buy that book, just go and do it. It's on amazon.co.uk. So Julie, you referred to writing the story of Lola, which is fiction, but maybe not so fiction, you know, when you look at it. And, you know, your own life story and your beliefs, which I think, you know, what comes through the book and what comes through you really is that you're doing this from the heart, and it's not for ego, and it's not from the head at all. It's really, it's a passion that's very, very visible and tangible in the book that you're holding. Is there a message that you would feel that Lola would like to share with people, apart from the passion and overcome your fears? Is there a particular thread that you feel is useful for healing in the world today?
Yeah, I think that there's a huge need for healing, and in my opinion, I suppose coming from, for want of a better word, a goddess feminist perspective, I think it's huge. It's hugely important for us women to reconnect with not only ourselves, but our own stories. And in the process of this, that has not only allowed Lola, through Lola, I suppose through that channel, that's what she encompasses, you know, because we think we women are everything, you know, we are so many things, we're capable of being so many things. And it was so important to create a character that encompassed all of those things, that was self-assured at times, that was confident, that could be angry, that, you know, I think in literature sometimes female characters can be very polarized, you know, they're either really stoic or they're the femme fatale, you know, but we are all those things. And I think it's really important, and I feel that if we as women reclaim our own story, and I mean our true origins, what we really are, which is beautiful divine beings, we're not mere ribs, we're more than that. And I honestly think that if we were to take control of that and challenge the patriarchy in that respect, that it could, without being over dramatic, that it could transform not only our own worlds, but the world, you know, if we take hold of that. And it's happening. And it's not just, you know, not all women are feminists, just that like all feminists are women. You know, there's something happening, especially in the UK. You look at the rise of Jeremy Corbyn, you look at the rise of that more matrifocal politics. And there's something bubbling under the surface. In America, you've seen it with Bernie Sanders. You've seen this beautiful growth of youth and these more matrifocal policies, for want of a better word, or gender stereotyping, you know. And it's really strange, in my opinion, that they came from someone like Bernie Sanders as opposed to Hillary Clinton, you know, who was maybe giving Americans more of the same. And unfortunately, as a result of that, they've ended up with someone even more ridiculous, you know. And I think when we look at the current state of the world, we look at the Middle East, we look at, you know, Yemen, we look at all these places, and this is exactly what we need. We need a different approach. And I think there's something happening not only in politics, but in activism, you know, in community. People are coming together, and even this rejection of the mainstream media and what we're being told, and the fear that's constantly being pumped into us, we're rejecting that. And social media has played a huge part in that. And this is really what my books are tapping into, is what I hope, you know, it's a story of our time. It's now, it's current. These are issues that we're facing now. And I suppose my answer to it is love yourself and love one another. You know,
yeah, and I also think that all of these things are happening for an absolute reason, you know, that there's no mistakes. And the fact that all of the tragedies are happening are, you know, it's heartbreaking, and actually maybe heart opening for people to come together. And what I love, and what I know you'll agree with, Julie, is in the face of all of everything that's going on in the world right now, that there's so many communities coming together to support each other with whatever it takes. It's bigger than the tragedy, and it's maybe the most healing part of this tragedy, is that the world is waking up to a different way, to cooperation and collaboration, and just doing things a different way.
Absolutely, Treacy.
Are you still there, Julie?
Yes, I am. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that's exactly true. And we're in a very, very exciting time, and we look around us, and I try not to get too disheartened, because as you said, for change to come, old things have to fall away, old things have to be challenged, and that is happening all around the place. Even in the recent elections here, that's happening. But even on a community level, in lots of different communities, people are saying this, and I suppose that's really what the Goddess Trilogy is about. The first book is set in Ireland, and it sort of takes in some of the gorgeous sites we have here. So not only locally up in the north here, we have Mussenden Temple, we have the forts that that have inspired me, that are just outside my hometown of Banbridge. There's lots of recognisable places for people, like the Hill of Tara, like Newgrange, which is really where the story comes to its climactic end in the first book. On the winter solstice it starts, and the summer solstice and ends in the winter solstice, and there's a huge symbolism with that and around the solstice and that solstice energy. And Equinox, then we see sort of a change where she goes off as an intern to the New York Torch, and New York is a very different environment, and it was a lovely opportunity for me to illustrate and I suppose explore Lola's connection with Ireland. James Joyce talked about, in order to see Ireland you had to leave Ireland, and I know he was talking about it for probably very different reasons, but I suppose it gives Lola this connection, realizing how strong her connection with the land is. And with there's like a lovely term, I'm not great with the Irish, but it's called Inshanashas or something. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong, but it's a story of the land, not only just the townlands and the name, but the very soil and the earth and everything that comes with that, and it's really beautiful. So it's allowed me to explore that, with where New York is completely different. She's in Hellfire Club HQ basically, and this sense of menace radiates off the building. They're so phallic, they're like these menacing totems, crouching over her, burned down on her, and she can feel the enmity radiating off this. And it was a really, aesthetically, it was a really, really interesting thing to be able to explore as well. And her powers do rise, but also the forces against her. Naturally, as her light begins to shine even brighter, it attracts that darkness a bit more. So lots of twists and turns.
And it sounds very similar to, I suppose, what a lot of people might be experiencing right now in as the light starts to grow and as we become more powerful in the sense of the goddess in everybody, not just in women, but in men as well. The divine feminine rising within everybody, and that knowledge and that truth that love wins over everything. And the forces are going to come bearing down even harder, because you're being tested to stand in your power, and just to send the love out there, that it's not about fear, it's really about that. And so what foresight you've had, Julie, to actually to pen these stories and to get them out there in a really tangible and everyday ordinary way. I'd liken, when I read the first book, I likened you to Dan Brown. Absolutely, it's very much Da Vinci Code-esque type of writing, and it has you absolutely turning every page in your adventure, and your storytelling is just absolutely amazing. And as Cheryl said, there's definitely something in the land. We're a land of storytellers, and maybe it's the connection that you have with this land in Ireland and the sacred sites that allows us. We have so many gifted, creative storytellers, authors, musicians, poets, artists. There's definitely something for sure. But listen, I'd like to, Julie, just bring this to a close if we can. We're just coming to the end of the broadcast time, and apologies everybody for the interruptions, but we'll edit them out. And for a repost, Julie, I'll post it up later. And I know you have to get to school right now, don't you?
Yes. Yeah, I have to get to school.
So thanks very much, first of all, to Cheryl for being with us. She has to go get some sleep. She was based in Michigan. Thanks very much, Cheryl. And anybody else who wants to join in the future, I won't be broadcasting next week, as I will be on a conference in a remote part of Ireland that doesn't have any internet connection. So we'll have to forego a week's scheduling, but we'll be back. I'm Treacy O'Connor, straight to the point. And please do go and check out Julie on Facebook. That's the best place to get you, Julie?
Yeah, on Instagram, yeah.
And Instagram as well, and the Goddess Trilogy by J.S. Comiskey. So I wish everybody a beautiful solstice, and thanks very much for bearing with us and for being with us, Julie. And congratulations on this.
Thank you.
And I'll see you later for the launch of your second book. Really excited at the Hill of Tara. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day, Julie.
Okay, same to you, Treacy. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.